whisper it in your ear from the moment you take your first breath. The world leans in close, cups its hand around your ear, and plants the seed. There are limits to what you can become. And for years, maybe decades, you swallowed that poison like medicine. Didn't you? Every time they told you to be realistic, to lower your sights, to fit inside their tiny box of expectations, you nodded, you smiled, you compromised. You told yourself it was wisdom, maturity, being practical. But let's call it what it really is, betrayal. A knife in the back of the warrior you were born to be. Look at me. I want you to truly hear this. Every single time you accept another man's ceiling as your own, you commit treason against your soul. You bow to a king who has no right to your crown. Strange, isn't it? How eager we are to believe the world when it tells us what we cannot do. How quick we are to surrender our greatest power, the ability to define our own boundaries. You've been handed maps with borders, drawn by weaker men, told this far and no farther by those who feared to venture beyond their own comfort. And perhaps the most crushing truth, these limits weren't even created for you. They were made by frightened people to protect themselves from their own unmet potential, then handed down like heirlooms, generation after generation, father to son, teacher to student, boss to worker, society to individual, invisible chains disguised as wisdom. You remember when it started, don't you? That first time someone looked at your boundless childhood dreams and laughed. That subtle shift in their eyes, pity mixed with something darker. Fear, perhaps. Fear that you might actually become what they failed to be. That moment when they patted your head and said, "That's nice, but let's talk about something more realistic." And something inside you dimmed, just a little. Then it happened again. And again. Until accepting limitations became your default state. Until you became the prison guard of your own captivity, watching yourself with suspicious eyes whenever you dared to reach beyond what others deemed possible for you. What a masterful trap they built. They convinced you to police your own potential, to doubt your own greatness. They trained you to flinch at opportunity, to see threats in possibilities, to choose safety over sovereignty. And the most devious part? They made you thank them for these limitations, made you believe they were protecting you from disappointment, from failure, from the pain of reaching too far. But here's the cold truth they never told you. Safety is an illusion bought at the cost of your greatness. Security purchased with the blood of your true self. Think of the fire that once burned in your chest. Remember how it felt? That absolute certainty that you were born for something extraordinary. Before they taught you to fear your own flame, before they convinced you that your light was too bright, too wild, too much for this world, before you learned to dim yourself to make others comfortable. That fire wasn't arrogance. It wasn't childish fantasy. It was recognition. Your soul recognizing its own tremendous power. When did you start believing that your potential had a ceiling? When did you begin to trust their maps more than your own internal compass? When did their doubt become louder than your own conviction? I see you nodding. You know exactly when it happened. You can pinpoint the moment you traded your warrior's sword for a beggar's bowl, the day you decided it was better to fit in than to stand out. The moment you accepted that extraordinary was for other people, special people, talented people, lucky people, not you. What a grand theft. What a perfect crime. They stole your greatness. And instead of calling the authorities, you helped them carry it away. But I'm not here to shame you for what's been stolen. I'm here to tell you it's time to take it back. With interest. Because here's what they never wanted you to discover. Limits aren't facts. They're opinions. They're suggestions. They're decorative lines on a map that have no bearing on the actual territory of what's possible. And opinions, even deeply held ones, even ones that have been passed down through generations, even ones wrapped in the clothing of absolute truth, they can be rejected. The most dangerous person in any room is the one who has stopped accepting imposed limitations. The one who looks at the ceiling others have built and thinks, I wonder what's above that. The one who questions not just the boundaries themselves, but the very authority of those who created them. That person terrifies the limit makers. Because once you start questioning one boundary, you start questioning all of them. Once you push through one ceiling, you realize they're all just constructs. Paper-thin barricades meant to contain paper-thin souls. Not yours. Your soul isn't made of paper. It's forged from something ancient, something unbreakable, something that recognizes artificial constraints and burns through them like tissue. Every great leap forward in human history came from someone who refused to play by established rules. Every revolution, every breakthrough, every transformation began with a single questioning mind that said, why must it be this way? Every legendary tale is the story of someone who looked at the boundaries set before them and simply stepped over them. These weren't supernatural beings. They weren't granted special dispensation from the universe. They were men and women who understood a fundamental truth. The only limits that truly bind us are the ones we accept. So what limits have you been accepting? What borders have you been treating as absolute laws rather than casual suggestions? What parts of yourself have you been keeping leashed and muzzled because someone once told you they were too wild, too ambitious, too unrealistic? There's a version of you that exists unbounded by these artificial constraints. A version that moves with the freedom of your earliest self before the world taught you to doubt, to fear, to shrink. That version hasn't disappeared. It hasn't died. It's been waiting, patiently, persistently, for you to remember who you really are. The path back to that true self isn't complicated, but it will demand everything from you. It begins with a single, savage recognition. Every limit you've accepted was a choice. Not a fact, not a law, not an immutable truth. A choice, which means you can make a different one. Starting now. When they tell you, that's impossible, hear it as, that's impossible for me, within my limited thinking. When they say, be realistic, understand what they really mean. Stay small, stay predictable, don't outshine me. When they warn you about risks, recognize their fear disguised as concern. Your existence threatens them. Your potential is a mirror showing what they surrendered. Your courage highlights their compromise. Your freedom reminds them of their own chosen captivity. Of course they want you limited. Of course they want you contained. Of course they work to convince you that the boundaries they've accepted must also be yours. Your bigness makes their smallness uncomfortable. Let them be uncomfortable. Let them squirm as you expand. Let them avert their eyes as you ignite. Let them make excuses as you demolish every barrier they swore was impenetrable. You weren't born to make others comfortable with their limitations. You weren't put on this earth to play small so that mediocrity could feel validated. You weren't crafted with such care, such precision, such potential, only to live within the cramped imagination of those who settled for less. Every moment you spend confined within their expectations is a moment stolen from your true destiny. Every compromise you make with your greatness is a wound inflicted on your future self. Every time you say, "I can't," when you mean, "They told me I shouldn't," you betray the warrior within who knows better. Listen closely now. There's a voice inside you that's been whispering all along. Beneath the doubt, beneath the fear, beneath the accumulated weight of every "be careful" and "that's not for people like us" and "know your place," that voice has never accepted these borrowed limitations. That voice has been waiting for you to remember your own authority, your own power, your own truth. That voice knows what you're capable of. That voice recognizes the artificial nature of every boundary you've accepted. That voice understands that the greatest sin isn't failure. It's the refusal to attempt greatness in the first place. It's time to amplify that voice, to turn its whisper into a roar, to let it drown out every limiting belief, every borrowed boundary, every inherited impossibility. Because here's the truth they've been hiding from you. The moment you stop accepting their limits is the moment you start discovering your actual capacity. And your capacity, your true capacity, unmarred by doubt, unburdened by fear, unlimited by the imagination of others, it would terrify them if they could see it. It might even terrify you. We've been trained to fear our own power, taught that unleashing our full potential is somehow dangerous, selfish, wrong. But that's just another limit they invented, another chain they convinced you to place around your own neck. Your greatness isn't something to fear, it's something to embrace. It's not selfish to become everything you were created to be, it's selfish to withhold it. The world needs your fire unleashed, not carefully contained. Needs your full force, not your measured restraint. Needs your boundless potential, not your careful compliance. Think of how many gifts have been strangled in their crib by men who accepted limits that never truly existed. Think of how many innovations, creations, transformations never materialized because someone believed the lie that they couldn't, shouldn't, mustn't. Think of what humanity has lost to the altar of limitation. Now think of what you've lost. What parts of yourself have you sacrificed to fit within boundaries that were never yours? What dreams have you abandoned not because they were impossible, but because someone told you they were? What greatness remains dormant within you, waiting for permission that will never come from the outside? The permission can only come from you. The declaration of independence from other people's limitations can only be signed by your hand. The prison break can only be initiated from within. And it begins with recognition. Seeing clearly that every time you've accepted their limits, you've betrayed your true self. Every time you've nodded along to "that's not possible," you've committed treason against your own potential. Every time you've settled for what they told you was realistic, you've slapped handcuffs on your own wrists. Recognition, then rejection. Forceful, total rejection of any boundary not of your own making. Not angry rejection. That still gives their limits power over your emotional state. Calm rejection. The kind that doesn't argue, doesn't try to convince, doesn't seek approval. The kind that simply steps over the line they've drawn and keeps walking. They'll try to pull you back, of course. They'll call you crazy, unrealistic, irresponsible. They'll predict your failure with absolute certainty. They'll disguise their fear as concern, their jealousy as wisdom. They'll use every tool at their disposal to return you to their comfortable, predictable box. Stand firm, not against them. That makes it a battle, gives their resistance substance. Stand firm in your own truth, your own vision, your own sense of what's possible. Let their objections pass through you like wind through branches. This journey from limitation to liberation isn't walked once and completed. It's a path you'll travel daily, hourly, with each decision, each thought, each action. The pull to return to accepted boundaries is powerful. The temptation to surrender your authority and accept their vetoes of your potential will arise again and again. Each time you must make the same choice: betrayal of their expectations or betrayal of your true self, comfortable captivity or challenging freedom, the safety of the known ceiling or the vertigo of boundless possibility. Choose yourself, consistently, relentlessly, unapologetically. The world breaks open for those who refuse to be contained by other people's imagination. Reality reshapes itself around the will of those who reject artificial constraints. Miracles become commonplace for those who understand that the only true limits are the laws of physics, and even those can be creatively navigated. Look at every great achievement in history. Behind each one stands someone who refused to accept the limitations others insisted were absolute. Every innovation, every breakthrough, every quantum leap forward came from minds that understood boundaries are mostly fictional. You are the heir to that legacy of boundary breakers. You carry their DNA, their spirit, their defiance. It's not something you need to develop, it's something you need to remember. It's not something you need to create, it's something you need to uncover. Beneath the layers of doubt others have wrapped around your soul, beneath the weight of every "be practical" and "that's just how it is" and "stay in your lane," beneath the scar tissue formed each time you accepted their ceiling as your own. There, waiting patiently, is your true self, unbounded, unbroken, unlimited. That self knows what the limit makers fear most, that their power exists only through your consent, that their boundaries hold you only because you honor them, that their authority over your potential is an illusion maintained solely by your belief. Withdraw that consent. Dishonor those boundaries. Dismantle that illusion. Watch what happens when you stop accepting their limits as your truth. Watch doors appear where they swore there were only walls. Watch paths open where they insisted there was only wilderness. Watch possibilities multiply where they guaranteed there were none. This isn't magical thinking. This isn't denial of reality. This is recognition of a deeper reality, that most limits exist only in our acceptance of them. That boundaries persist only through our unwillingness to test them. That impossibilities remain only because we haven't yet committed ourselves fully to making them possible. Don't you see? Every time you accept their limits, you betray your true self. Every time you surrender your potential to someone else's judgment, you commit a crime against your own soul. Every time you say, "I can't," when the truth is, "They told me I shouldn't," you trade your birthright for a bowl of mediocrity. The trade isn't worth it. The safety isn't worth it. The approval isn't worth it. Nothing they can offer in exchange for your boundless potential could ever be enough. So reclaim it. All of it. Not gradually, not carefully, not with hesitation or apology. Reclaim it with the full force of your being, with the complete authority that has always been yours. Burn the maps they gave you. tear down the ceilings they built above you. Step over the lines they drew around you, and watch yourself expand into the vastness you were always meant to occupy. Watch yourself achieve what they swore was impossible. Watch yourself become what they feared you might. Unlimited, unstoppable, unbound by anything but your own vision of what's possible. That's not arrogance. That's not delusion. That's your natural state, before the world convinced you to accept its cramped definition of reality. Return to that state. Return to your true self. Return to the boundless being you were created to be. And never again betray that self by accepting limits that were never yours to begin with. The true war isn't fought on battlefields. It's fought in the quiet chambers of your mind, where you either accept or reject the limitations others have placed upon your path. The true hero isn't the one who conquers external enemies, but the one who refuses to be conquered by internal doubts planted by external voices. Be that hero. Fight that war. Win that victory. Your true self is waiting on the other side, just beyond the boundaries you've been told not to cross. Cross them,